Sanzani, Dumelang Lisedi. Hello everyone and welcome to the one-on-one sessions with Makgoma. And I'm your host, Gogo. I'm giving you guys tips, lessons, and teachings on everything spirituality. So today we're going to be talking into details or going into details about Makgoma. Okay, so I really don't know what the English term of it is. But during the video where I talked about cleansings, different types of cleansings, I did mention a cleansing for this particular disease, which is Makgoma. So the way that I usually describe Makgoma to people is like a process, like, or rather a sickness that a person, a spiritual sickness that or condition that a person actually contracts or gets, and it's believed to be caused by the death of a person in the family or the death of a child, in a sense. Né? So it could be the death of a person in the family, like maybe an immediate family member or relative, or even the death of a child before that child is born. But there are different causes of Makgoma where the death of a person or relative is the number one cause of Makgoma. Secondly, another cause of Makgoma is irregular or immoral sex practices, which can be like being intimate with someone, with multiple people at the same time. You're taking a lot of different energies, which are bad energies from multiple people, and at the end of the day, those different types of energies accumulate to create Makgoma, right? And another cause is when you're attending a funeral of a person where could be a side partner, because we all know most of us have, not most of us, most of you guys have side chicks, side boyfriends and whatnot, or rather being attending a funeral of a boyfriend or a girlfriend, a person that you are not married with, with whom you and your ancestors are not joined but have been in an intimate relationship. That is something that is really not allowed in our tradition, because it does in fact cause Makgoma for certain people. Okay, another cause is, like I said earlier, the death of an unborn child. This death could happen through a miscarriage, which is absolutely normal. It happens to everybody, and also not everybody, but most people, they do encounter this. But also, Lorna, the death of a child through termination. Okay, and the thing about the death of an unborn child through termination is that not only will it cause Makgoma, but the spirit itself will actually manifest into a Manono spirit. A Manono spirit is sort of like an idlozi, ne? The unborn child becomes an ancestor on their own, but the thing about this ancestor is that it's a very pissed off ancestor. The ancestor is angry, the spirit is angry. This spirit ends up blocking certain things in your life, attacking you, and causing a lot of carnage in a person's life. Okay, so with this being said, being intimate with someone who also has Makgoma also does make a person contract the spiritual disease as well. Okay, but given the fact that I told you guys the different causes of Makgoma, I do want to specify certain symptoms that people may encounter with Makgoma. But bear in mind, not everyone encounters all these symptoms. You might find that with all these symptoms that I mentioned, you might have one or two or none at all. And the only way you are able to figure out that you actually have Makgoma is when you are consulting with a prophet or Sangoma, and this person actually points it out, or I am seeing this. Because what happens with the sickness, or rather the symptoms of Makgoma, is that you can have Makgoma for a couple of years without having any symptoms whatsoever, and then after, let's say, 5 or 10 years, that is when the symptoms actually start to develop. And once they start developing, then that's when they tend to become more severe over time, until you actually do the necessary processes of actually curing, or rather removing, this Makgoma sickness. Okay, so here are the symptoms. The first symptom is irregular menstrual cycle, and this usually happens with women. Okay, obviously it's gonna happen with women. Né? For women, it's irregular menstrual cycles. You'll find this month your cycle came at this time, while next month you don't see your cycle at all. Like, your cycles are constantly irregular. Sometimes that is actually one of the major symptoms of Makgoma for women. For you to actually know that you have Makgoma, you might be experiencing that regularly. Again, secondly, experiencing migraines. So people with Makgoma actually experience a vast amount of migraines. You'd find them using different types of things like Panados, like all types of medication they could find to actually cure the migraines, the headaches, but only find that none of those things work. Okay, they might work a bit, but not to the extent at which they are supposed to work, because this is a spiritual sickness. It's actually the same as when you have like an ancestral headache. For example, people with ancestral gifts, we have headaches now and then which are caused by our ancestors when they want to show us certain things, but we are not able to see those things, so we actually encounter like headaches, and the only way to actually cure them is either to smoke snuff or smoke a pipe, depending on what kind of ancestors that you have, if it's a male ancestor or a female ancestor, and what it is that this ancestor actually used, right? So with people with Makgoma, you also experience a lot of migraines, and medication does not really work for these migraines most of the times, right? Number 3, the third symptom is being bloated constantly. So you're always bloated non-stop, and I remember this occurrence that I had when I was initiating, right? So it was a very peculiar thing. It was my first time encountering a person with Makgoma and actually expelling the symptom, being bloated. So this lady, what happened is that her tummy was big. It was like really big. It kept growing as though she was pregnant, even though she was not pregnant. It was actually Makgoma, like the one of the major symptoms of Makgoma. And given the fact that she has had this Makgoma for a very long period of time, then her tummy began to like get huge as though she was pregnant, whereas she wasn't. And after going through the necessary processes of cleansing or clearing out or curing this Makgoma disease, that is when her body went back to normal and the bloatedness actually went away completely. But for some people, it doesn't always occur that your tummy gets really big. You just constantly bloated. You just have a lot of air sucked within you and you feel it constantly, and it sometimes becomes very, very uncomfortable to actually go about your day with this particular symptom, right? Another symptom of Makgoma is muscle aches and pains. So you'd find out we have a lot of aches and pains all over your muscles. It doesn't matter which part of the body. It could be your legs, your arms, your hands. Like it's almost as though you might be having arthritis, those kind of diseases, but it's not really arthritis. It's actually Makgoma. It like the symptoms are pretty much similar to arthritis, and these people who have muscle aches and pains, they find out most of the times the muscle aches are more severe in the lower back of their body. Okay, the pains are it's more painful at their lower back, regardless of where other parts of their muscles are actually aching. Okay, another symptom of Makgoma is extreme fatigue. So these people who have Makgoma, you'd find out they're tired 24/7. They always want to go to sleep. They are so anxious, they are tired, they are so fatigued, like they will sleep constantly non-stop. Okay, another symptom is experiencing morning sickness as though you are pregnant. Okay, so with this one, your morning sickness, it occurs mainly with women, and mainly with women by long they've had a miscarriage or an abortion. That is where this symptom actually occurs the most. You're just experiencing morning sickness on a regular basis, and you find out, okay, you're experiencing all of this, and you go check out whether you're pregnant or not, and you find that you're negative, but every single month or every single week you experience those kind of symptoms regularly because of the fact that you already have Makgoma, and that is what is causing these particular symptoms that you have currently. Another symptom, which is the last one that I pointed out here, is that for women, it can also result to multiple miscarriages afterwards. So if, for example, let's say you have an abortion, right? You terminate the pregnancy in the beginning. Then given the fact that, like I said, the spirit of a child who is terminated can actually turn into a manono spirit, a very angry spirit that actually attacks the person and torments the person, or rather the parent or the mother or whatnot. Given the fact that this spirit will torment you, what it will also do, it will also cause or overlay a lot of miscarriages over and over again. You'll attempt to have children frequently but fail most of the times. And most of the times, this is the case. The only time a child survives is only with a child who is spiritually gifted. A spiritual child is the one that actually gets to survive this up until you are able to actually clear or remove this condition altogether. That's when you'll be able to It's only then that you'll have a good pregnancy and give birth to a healthy child without having any issues whatsoever. Okay, so those are the symptoms for Makgoma for adults. But at the same time, there are instances where, Lord, a child is born under Makgoma. This can happen if in the family someone recently died, right, and the cleansing, or rather the process of removing Makgoma, was not done by the family members. And let's say, for example, during that period, someone, like maybe a lady in that family, gets pregnant or is pregnant, then that child will be born under Makgoma. That actually brings the child into a risk of actually experiencing sicknesses, like different child sicknesses, children sicknesses, baby sicknesses, such as like malwetse, tabing and whatnot, right? I really don't know how to name them in English, because I'm primarily educated in them in Sotho, so I don't know what to call malwetse tabeng. But you'll find out the child is just sick, and some of the symptoms that child will have will be like the eyes of the child will just roll to the back constantly. The child will be extremely soft. The child will not be able to develop in this, like at the right pace, at the way that this child is supposed to develop. Okay, so it actually hinders the child's growth, and it actually puts that particular child in danger, because automatically that child was born under Makgoma. That child was born under the shadow of death of a particular person in the family, or rather another child whom the parent has had a miscarriage or an abortion with before they were pregnant with this particular child. Okay, so in terms of treating Makgoma, so that the treatment of Makgoma is different. It differs depending on what type of Makgoma you have, how long you've had it, and how severe it is. But all in all, the process on its own is cleansing and purifying. So you'll be cleansing the spirit and cleansing yourself as a person and purifying that spirit to allow it to cross over. Okay, so in terms of treating Makgoma, what I point out is that a person who has Makgoma will need to undergo a cleansing process. The cleansing can be done at home or even at the rivers. It depends on what kind of Makgoma you have and how severe your Makgoma is. Another thing that I pointed down is that sometimes the cleansing may require slaughtering a goat or a chicken. Usually when you are required to slaughter an animal, it's usually a chicken. But if you find out you've had this Makgoma for a very long period of time, that is when you'll need to slaughter a goat to do this entire process. I also noted down that the cleansing ritual may also include collecting the spirit of the person and returning it back home. So the complicated part about this one is, let's say for example a family member has passed away, but this particular family member, let's say, died in a car accident and was far from home. The family needs to go to that particular place where the person died, do a ritual to collect the spirit, which is somewhat similar to the home diki thing, but it is not really it. It's completely different. It's a ritual that is completely different on its own. Collect that spirit, return it back home, do a ceremony where, Lord, they are slaughtering a goat to actually invite, or rather welcome, the spirit back home. And after having done that process, the family members will actually undergo the cleansing process once that spirit has been brought back home and laid to rest properly in the household. Okay, and also I did point out that for instances where a woman has terminated the pregnancy, given how severe the sickness may be at the time, the severity of the sickness, it would only depend on when exactly you do the cleansing after you have had that miscarriage or an abortion. Given the severity of the sickness at that particular time, the mother will need to go through a ritual of consolation to the spirit of the unborn child and also to the ancestors. So this process on its own is where, Lord, as the parent, as the mother, you will be seeking forgiveness from this particular spirit, because do remember that I did mention that this spirit can actually turn into an angry spirit that can actually end up tormenting a person. A spirit that blocks your life, a spirit that affects your progress in your life. So when you're going through this ritual Makgoma, if you're already at that point or stage where, Lord, this spirit is actually tormenting you, causing you to have miscarriages, causing your life to be hard, causing a lot of sicknesses that are numerous all over your body, then you'll also need to go through a ritual where you are asking the spirit for forgiveness, and also asking the ancestors for forgiveness, and asking the spirit to cross over, and asking the ancestors to welcome that particular spirit into the house, into the spiritual realm of your ancestors, so their spirit can be clear. So in total, the Makgoma like process or treatment is actually the process where you detach the spirit of the dead person, whether it is a family member or a child. You detach that spirit from your body, allowing it to cross over into the spiritual realm, so it can actually work as a spirit of the ancestors or whatnot. So yeah, it's only when this spirit is appeased that it will be able to cross over, and then you will no longer experience symptoms of Makgoma. But bear in mind that if you are experiencing Makgoma, go and check it and actually remove the sickness as soon as you possibly can, because like I said, if you are intimate with someone who doesn't have it, that person can actually contract that disease, because on its own it's a spiritual sickness. It's it's just like lififi, darkness in a person's life. If you have darkness and you're intimate with someone who has a lot of light in their life, you'll automatically send your darkness to that particular person, and at the end of the day, that person's life will actually be stuck, or rather end up being more complicated than it's supposed to be. Okay, anyways, I hope you guys fully understood this video. I hope it gave you guys a lot of insight on Makgoma, even though I know my explanations are very vague, given the fact that it's very difficult to like explain such a sickness to people. But I did my best here, and if there's anywhere Melody you guys feel like I did not point it out, feel free to put it on the comment section. I will pin the comments so everyone else can read it. But thank you guys for watching. Have a beautiful one, and don't forget to like and subscribe. Tokozani, bye bye.